Without a doubt, children are the future of mankind, and if the trends are right, the foundation of the future is tech. Today's guest has positioned herself at the intersection of these two important factors, hell bent on bridging the gap and helping Jamaica's children equip themselves with real world skills to thrive in a technology driven future. CEO and founder of STEAM House Network, an educational hub for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math learning in Jamaica, she passionately believes that the creators of tomorrow make today. It's full steam ahead as we meet today's Start Stories guest, Godiva Golding.
Primary school was fun. Like being 8, 9, 10. Wow, that was. I almost envy my baby sister. Well, she's not a baby anymore. She's in grade 5 last year, so she's in grade 5 no, and I know last year she was in grade 4. And so last year, remember when school was still opening up back and they kind of had 1 month where school was open and everything closed? During that 1 month that school was open, I went down to Montego Bay because that's where my siblings live, and I carried them to school for the first week. Now, obviously, some of the things that you have to have, especially going back to school then, you had to have masks. So we didn't have any kid-size masks in the house. So I went out, got masks, and I got pink masks for the girls and like blue masks for the boys. And the pink masks, they just so happened to have cars on them, right? So I remember going to school, I'd gotten these masks from my sister, and I gave her the mask. She had her mask, the shield had a little Frozen emblem on it, so it was kind of cool, kids like cute stuff.
Yeah.
So I remember dropping her off at school with her pink mask that had the small cars on it. Sir, when I went to pick her up, she had turned over the mask to the other side because she didn't like the you would think it was the cars, right? No, she said it was a baby mask. So she didn't want to, she's not a baby. So I don't know, something about like being her age now, like 9, 10-ish, like finding yourself, like having your voice is really important. But it's cool how she just turned over the mask and she's like, hey, I'm not a baby anymore. And she's just in grade 4, grade 5. And I think to myself, hey, what was I thinking when I was in grade 4 or grade 5?
So what were you like? Yeah.
Oh, Lordy, I was very, very strong-willed, and I made up my mind about everything that I wanted to do. So, yeah, like having those interactions now with my siblings and just seeing their personalities literally emerge as early as 3 years old. I'm like, whoa, this is a whole person, and it's a whole person that has their own kind of way of thinking, way of acting, and they'll be forming their own opinions. And when I think back to myself at 7, 8, I told myself that I already knew what I wanted to do with my life.
What was that at 7?
It was cool. So back in the day, I was like, I'm a 90s kid, so it's weird to tell my siblings now that I was born in like 1990. But at 7, there was like this big thing about climate change. I think we were learning a lot at that time around global warming and the holes in the ozone layer. And I remember I used to journal, because I still journal now, and I used to journal then. I was like, yeah, when I grow up, I want to make something that fixes the ozone layer. And then I had the little specs for it, because you're thinking, all right, cool. If the problem is that like CO2 is creating like this really, really warm atmosphere, like maybe we need to have more oxygen out there. So like, how are we going to make oxygen and make it so it can cover the entire world? So that was kind of weird. Like when I think about it now, it's like, that's what I was thinking at 7, 8 years old. So when I think about 7 and 8-year-olds now, I'm not in the least surprised that they're thinking about these problems too.
Right.
And they're thinking about their relationships in their home. They're like reflecting on just life in general, and they're forming, they're still building their personality. and their minds are like sponges, and like what you teach them at such a tender age is very much going to determine like where they see themselves in the future, you know. And to some extent, you always want to be thinking about your future, not to literally be living there, but thinking about your future, it gives you something to aspire to. It gives you hope. If you were thinking, possibly like maybe say you were thinking that you wouldn't live beyond a certain age, how would your life be different? Like what decisions would you make? But if you're thinking, hey, there's going to be a future 50 years down the line, and I'm going to be a part of that, the conversation changes a little, you know?
So I'm getting the vibe that you've always pretty much been a maker. Obviously a thinker, but a maker if it is that you're thinking through technical specs and that kind of thing. Do you think that there are any influences that you kind of saw that line that out? Because a lot of people dream, kids are imaginative, but the fact that you used to sit down and like outline specifications about how it is that you would resolve these issues, like do you think that there was an inspiration in your life that kind of led you along that path?
I would point to two things. My parents, and also like what my parents forced me to do. And when I say and when I say force, it's not like literally like you have to do this, but the environment that you create for a child literally informs how they behave. So first things first, I have a pretty brilliant father. Just gonna throw that out there.
Okay, daddy. Yeah.
And with that, and when I say brilliance, it's important to qualify that, because brilliance isn't just, hey, do you know all these random facts? Brilliance is literally, how do you look at the world and show that you're interacting with a way that a lot of people aren't thinking about? And you know, you might sound a little crazy, but you just might be right. So I remember just growing up and seeing my dad like play around with the, you know, with little things here and there, like, you know, this man like pulled down his entire car, and I remember him changing out the entire transmission and the engine, and you know, and he did all these things. And at one point, this is really simple, you know, I think again around that age, like 7, 8ish, 9ish, I see him do this thing one time where basically he didn't have, you remember those push point pens, right? That would have like 5 color or 4 color ink in them.
And you would push down each one based on the color that you wanted,
So none of that was in the house, but like for his work, like he had to use like a blue pen and a red pen. You know what my dad did?
What?
He basically took a red pen and a blue pen, put them on opposite ends, and then like he just taped them around. So like this is the
Okay.
So like, you know, little things like that. Like who thinks, all right, cool, I need a blue pen and a red pen, so what I'm going to do is like tape them together.
Right. So you were in an environment where people were thinking differently, even in the simplest ways possible.
And not only that, I was in an environment where I had a lot of books, you know. Books are really important. I didn't know at the time. I read everything from embroidery, crochet, like pattern making. I still like love that now. You know, different animals. Like there were just like random math and physics books in the house from like A-level and A-level, because it wasn't CAPE, and like A and O-level. And like every now and then, like my dad's old physics books, I just read through them. And we had like encyclopedias, and I remember at one time I was like really obsessed with reading the dictionary.
What about Reader's Digest and things like that?
Oh yeah, those are beautiful. And those are really for school. But I tell you something, right? I was in an environment where, as far as I'm concerned, I was privy to everything that was happening in my house. I remember traveling to different places across the island, and like mommy would go to the gas station and she would buy the map, and then, you know, because they had that map and you know, you had to read the map, I was like, all right, cool, where are we now? Where are we going to go? Which road are we going to take? So like she'd be asking me these questions like, yeah, mommy, so we're going to go from here to there, and like, you know, you kind of show her on the map. Nowadays we use Google Maps, but as young as I was back then, the skills that I learned with my mom, like driving around the country, it was kind of what helped me in geography. So when I got to grade 9 and we were doing like map skills. My map skills were formed
Ages ago, I'm sure.
yeah, so like
Right.
you got very used to like grids and different, coordinates and whatnot. And I think again, like when you look at learning now, that's what your learning experience is supposed to be. Because to some extent, a lot of like how I think I was able to make connections in school was because like in regular life, like we were doing some of this. And I found a similar vein play out when I got to university, where I was like working and going to school. Like I was practicing things in my job that basically I was learning the theory of like while going through school.
Right.
So that was interesting.
So tell me, when was your first opportunity to kind of do something that I guess you would say was a project, like a full-on attempt, maybe at one of those things that you had come up with? Do you have like a first project that stood out to you and you're like, all right, this was my first attempt at a business or a venture?
So to some extent, I've always been doing projects, not necessarily in a business sense, but in a, hey, let's create something because it's fun kind of sense. And again, my mother is like a bit like that too. She likes to just make things. And this is anywhere from clothes to like art, to like painting things, drawing things. But beyond that, in terms of an actual venture, when you're saying like, all right, cool, money is going to change hands here.
Yes, like you're like, all right, so I've done this, I know I'm good at this, let's try doing something.
Okay, so I want to say honestly, I've never been much of a business-minded person. No.
Okay.
And funny enough, I see myself less in that vein and more in, I like interesting problems. I like interesting problems. And even as I think about like, building steam house, what I feel like I'm doing is solving an interesting problem. And in order to solve that problem, I need to learn the business skills. I need to have that accounting down pat. I need to have some sort of customer development, product development, team management skills. So it's like, what do I pull in as my resources for being able to solve this problem?
So how do you stay kind of in that vein? Because what you find is, it sounds to me like you've turned something, as you said, you find fun or you're passionate about, into a business. Sometimes some people find that to be a strain. They find that they get caught up in the operational aspects of the business, that sometimes you can lose sight of the fun or the joy or your purpose for what it is that you do. What do you feel like keeps you in that vein?
Ooh, that's a heavy question. So first things first, I would have never pursued this opportunity if I had not seen a strong case for it.
What was that case?
The case was actually going through and realizing that the skill set was lacking. Yeah. And coming from where I do, so I grew up between St. Anne, St. Catherine, and went to school in Trelawney, did a little time at Hampton. I went to St. Elizabeth there for a year. Something that you notice in all of these areas, they're like extremely talented people. And it almost as if everyone has to come to Kingston just to just to thrive.
Yeah.
I'm like, I more or less got to university after, working in my community. I've always been a community person, like working with youth development groups, community development groups. And when I came to UWI, I came to study electronics engineering. And funny enough, they had just started that program. And, going through that experience, you realize, hey, that there are computers, like there are all of these resources here. And as someone who isn't from Kingston, coming to Kingston, seeing, just what was possible, I kept asking myself, like, why not us?
Right, why not Otatongs, right?
Yeah, like, why not? Like, yeah, like no offense to anybody, but like, the resources to some extent, like when you consider what is possible with technology, what is possible with the internet, the long and short is like opportunities have no reason why they can't be like widely distributed in a world like this,
Right.
in a world that makes this possible. So the business case for me was one, the change in just the landscape of how, even from a government level, persons were viewing education. And then, coming up and having siblings, my siblings, the eldest is 10, she turns 11 this year. And I really had myself asking, hey, what kind of world are we creating for them? And when you put all of that together, you tend to realize a lot more persons had this problem. A lot of these persons were parents, the persons or government agencies and development organizations that care about how we're educating our children. And if it's one thing I believe strongly about, like what STEAM House is able to provide, it's opportunity and exposure. Exposure to just what is possible. Because I dare say a lot of the things that I would say I'm able to do now, I might have done them sooner had I known they were options. Had I known they were options. And I think that is true of many Jamaican students right across the board.
Right.
And this also comes a bit from my youth development background. Just on a whim, ask 5 Jamaican students what they want to be right now.
Doctor, lawyer.
There's a soldier and the
something
police that come up.
Yes, and
Yeah.
social media, right? Influencer.
Yeah,
right?
like you want to be like a YouTuber. And like I said, when you look at the potential of people, we can be much more than that.
Right.
If only we know what is possible. So a bit of what we do at STEAM House is also challenging what people think is possible and what young learners think is possible. Because again, as young as they are, you're like 7, 8, 9, 10, even when you're like 12, 13, growing right up to 16, if you have the skill set to sort of manipulate this new world, it's not so new now, we're living in the present of it, there's fewer limitations placed on just how far you can go with it, as long as, again, a few other things line up. Because nothing about education and social mobility happens in isolation.
Correct. So before, I really want us to talk about and define what STEAM House is to a lot of people who, don't know for sure what it is. I think you've given us some fantastic insight into why it is that you've gotten there. But before we start talking about STEAM House and the fantastic kind of program that you've built, I want to talk to you. I love to bring up this question about education. You did business management, right? You came to town to do, you said electronic, what was it?
Electronics engineering, like it was the first year of the program.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that they had a program, but they put me in the program and I was like, okay, cool. You say I can do this, that's interesting.
And then you ended up doing business management, and now here you are fully fledged in STEAM, right?
Yeah.
Tell me how does that transition happen? I always love hearing how it is that you move from man, I'm gonna be in business management to here you are in tech.
That is a very interesting, very non-linear, it's gone over the place kind of story.
Yeah.
So yeah,
In a nutshell.
the nutshell part of it
Yeah.
is simply that I found my passion in basically solving problems. And I come from more of a development background than anything else. And
Yeah.
So I went through the throes very quickly. I was working at a renewable energy company. I was there as a junior engineer, like long enough.
Wow.
So and this was even before I finished my degree. And going through that, then doing like development work with UNESCO and then like other organizations based at UWI. There's Youth Crime Watch of Jamaica. They run an educational program. I worked at Edufocal, which is an edtech company. And all of this goes back to a development problem. Like, how do you solve people problem? And then I said, what tool am I going to use? Let's use a business. Because the question that you often get asked too is like, yeah, why not start a non-profit? For me, I think, again, a business case can be made for impact. And to some extent, that flexibility to deliver on that triple bottom line is important. You know, you hear it a lot now. It used to not always be the case, but people, planet, and profit. It means a lot that we're able to make money and impact people. And yeah, for the planet that we're all going to inherit. So that's the quick thing. Had several experiences, and again, coming from a development background, I was like, okay, I see how business can be used to solve this social problem. Why not use business?
There is profitability in making an impact and doing something that is beneficial to the planet, right?
And more so, people have the hugest sort of ROI. You know, if we're to think of equipment breaks down, software deteriorates, people aren't forever, but investing in people, the potential is infinite. You really cannot tell, you know, just how far things can go if you really invest in people. And that's far beyond what technology can do, or any sort of machinery.
I mean, you are in STEM, so I think someone would think immediately that your focus is technology. So it's really interesting that you've just said that the people component is what is most important to you. I think we can, for someone who has never encountered STEAM House, has never heard about what it is that you do, what do you do in a nutshell?
All right. So we prepare learners for the future. It's as simple as that. We want to create a Jamaica in which students, through the teaching of STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math as entry points, they're more prepared to face what is ahead. In particular, we teach robotics, coding, and digital design to students through cohort-based programs. And yeah, we have students enrolled from 7 to 18. So that is what we do in a nutshell. And this is online as well as a bit of in-person, because we understand what that need is like. We could have chosen to be only virtual, but with the hands-on nature of what we do, we still need to have that physical experience.
How have you found that your participants have kind of changed? Because you're seeing these kids when they're coming in. What do you think is some of the biggest changes that you've seen in the participants based on the program?
Well, I think it goes right back to what I said again, like opportunity, exposure, being able to see what you can do with your own two hands, just because you know it was possible, just because somebody planted that seed. And so with us, we have a project-based learning approach. So what does that mean? For everything that you do with STEAM House, you have some sort of artifact, some sort of proof of work that says, I made this with my own two hands, you know, even if something physical or something that you're typing on your laptop. And in terms of the change that we're seeing in students, it literally just opens up their mind. A student does a course with STEAM House from the beginning, and they start to explore some other things on their own. So we have students who make speech-to-text generators, and these are like 11, 12-year-olds. Wow. You know, for 7-year-olds, they assemble robots. They kind of learn how the little ultrasonic sensor works, how the IR sensor works. They start to have an appreciation of just, you know, the physical environment that some of these electronics operating and like how computers think. For really, really young kids, they also like the possibility of creating games, because kids are just really creative. Right. Yeah. Really, really creative. And so again, it's seeing that, you know, your phone and the laptop that you play your Roblox on and your Minecraft, it's not just for Minecraft and Roblox.
Right. And you can build Minecraft and Roblox as
build
well.
Something like Minecraft and Roblox, and here's how. So it's a change of thinking and is the sense of self-efficacy. So if there's one thing that STEAM House programs are catered to doing, is making students autodidactic. So that means you're a self-learner because, quite frankly, in this very uncertain future, there's no rule book. There's no manual that says, hey, it's not like our parents' time or before our parents' time. It's like, okay, cool, you're going to leave high school, you're going to work in a job for 50 years. Our students are going to be going out into a very uncertain world. So their importance just of their place in it is really important. And just being able to say or know that, hey, I can build something for myself. And this doesn't have to be a business. This has, just the idea of making, of pulling together resources, of being able to provide some value to someone else is going to be a skill set that they have to hone. And because they're going to be inheriting a more or less uncertain world, technology is moving at such a fast pace that we can't quite tell where an 8-year-old now will be in 18 years. In the same way that you couldn't tell like 15 years ago when you're in high school, that you would be posting things on social media, on a Facebook or an Instagram.
That it would be my career, my job, right?
Yeah, it's like you would not be able to tell. So in a similar vein, we cannot know what an 8-year-old will be doing at 18.
I think what I really like about what you've shared is it sounds immediately to me that they're not walking away with a certification or it's more of honing a way of thinking that can be applied to anything. I really, really like that. Yeah.
Certificates are still really valuable. People like the tangibles, but what students walk away, it's way, 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 way more than just skin deep, and it has to be, because again, we're planting seeds and shaping minds, and we want those minds to feel fully empowered to face an uncertain future, or at least rather it's uncertain for us now, but when they see things changing before their eyes, they're already up to speed as how they can play a part to it.
They're prepped to make the most of it.
Yeah, we're preparing future-ready kids.
Absolutely. So, I mean, one of the big things with the STEAM industry, whether it's here or globally, is that there is a discrepancy in male to female participation. I know that is clear. Some of the stats that I found from the US Census showed that women in STEAM have finally reached 20%, but 73% of the jobs, and that's the US, so I can't even tell what the Jamaican market is like. So tell me, like, how it's safe to say that entrepreneurship, and especially STEAM, is like a boys' club, right? So tell me, how is it that as a young woman, how do you navigate the space and make space for other women in STEAM?
All right, this is a very, very interesting question, and I have, I have strong views on this.
Yeah.
First things first, let me point out, Jamaica is an anomaly. Yes,
Okay.
Jamaica is an anomaly. Whenever we think about gender statistics, it's important to remember that the gender stats that obtain globally don't apply.
Yeah, because we
Don't
have
apply
majority
here.
women in management, right?
We have majority women in management, and when we look at education, education favors women as well.
Absolutely.
Education does not favor or boys or growing men, and that's something that as a society we have to look into. But to women in STEAM, despite women excelling in education, in business, and in many other spheres of life in Jamaica, you still don't find very many women in STEAM.
Right.
You really don't.
Yeah.
And this is even when you consider like the technical side of art. They're just like, there are few go-to women when you look at audio engineering or you look at technical light design. Very few women in those fields. So like when things get technical, it's almost as if women, the count starts to dwindle. And to some extent, by being a woman in business and in a technical field or like working in technology and with technology, you stand out. And it's come to this point where I've gotten this comment more than once. Oh, you look like you're catering to women and children. And I was like, oh, okay. So when you saw all these men, did you say we were catering to just men, or just, said it was normal?
Right.
So one thing that I bear in mind is that representation is important, and being a woman in this intersection here, it seems a little abnormal. But it's important to own that abnormality. While a couple of things that we've realized with Seam House, we attract a lot of girls, and you would think that, technical, you're probably gonna get more male students, but we have had quite the opposite. We have a lot of female students. And why is this? Because seeing someone like our team, and like we have female instructors and female persons who basically just go through and they build design work, they teach art classes, all of that. Seeing females just pop up over and over again, it starts to paint in the mind of a child that this is a possible future for them.
It's normal.
It's normal.
Yeah.
So whereas you might look in other spaces and it seems like things have dwindled down, we know that just by virtue of my leadership and our representation of the company, we are attracting more ladies, more women, and part of the effect of that is that people start to feel comfortable. I know for a fact, like oftentimes, if you're like the only woman in a male-dominated field, it gets scary. It gets scary, but once you start to build community, once you start to see more people like yourself, you feel a little bit more sure in your skin. When you see persons doing things that you would want to do, but you weren't sure you could do because of how you're viewed. And there are a couple of times when I've had weird incidences with persons thinking, hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing this because you're not a man.
Okay.
But it's for them to figure out what that means for themselves.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm in a place where I've created that welcoming atmosphere. I've basically said, hey, this is where I like, and this is where I belong, and I'm gonna stay here. And it's really fun.
Whether you like it or not. All right, so tell me something. You're obviously a very multifaceted person. We've talked about tech, but you are also Miss St. Catherine 2016 Festival Queen. Tell me, how did that particular skill set, because a lot of people wouldn't think, how would the Festival Queen experience, the pageantry, the, being on a stage, how did that help impact, have some effect on your entrepreneurship journey? Are you running a business?
That one is a really interesting question. First things first, don't ever let anybody put you in a box, because you're this, you can't be that. The only caveat is that you can't be everything all at once, but you can be like Johnny Depp and be several things.
One after the other.
One after the other.
Right.
So different stages are going to be calling for different things, but for Festival Queen, that was a lesson in service. That was a lesson in representing people, in understanding that people have put confidence in you to carry out a particular role, and you should deliver it and represent them to the best of your ability. It's not unlike your parents raising you in your home, and then they send you out and it's like, don't embarrass me. Make sure that when you go outside you behave. Right. Maybe not that. But it's very much a sense of pride to be representing people, to know that they don't see you as any run of the mill. Like, they want the best of their parish, the best of their community to be represented in you, and that's an honor, to be honest, and a sort of privilege that you don't take for granted, because everything is in service to people. You do your best to represent them as well as you can.
So let's talk a little bit. I just want to know about, you've been on this journey for a while. How long has it been that you've been doing Steam House?
Officially or unofficially?
Unofficially. That's when it starts, right?
Unofficially. I've played with this for years. Unofficially, 2013, 2014, thereabout. Officially, 2020.
Okay.
Actually, official, yeah.
So tell me, what has been your biggest lesson thus far?
Oh my. Ask for help. Learn how to ask for help. Sometimes we think, oh, like, I didn't realize how much I thought I could do everything by myself. And I underestimated just how much people were willing to help me if only I had asked.
Okay. All right, so you're one of those people, and I think that's quite a common thing, isn't it? Where people are like, oh no man, I can do it on my own.
And another thing, not because you can do it, doesn't mean you need to do it. You may not need to.
All right, so what has been the best part of the journey thus far?
Wow. The thing that excites me the most also scares me the most.
God.
Again, it's in the vein of service, in the vein of people trust you now. How do you do your best to continue to deliver on that trust people have in you?
That's a lot of pressure.
And yeah. It's one of those things that doesn't get talked about enough. And for me, it's almost as if we're going back to, core principle. Like, what did we set out to do? What was our purpose when we put ourselves on this mission? And if the mission was to build something of value, we always have to ensure as we go through different stages that we're delivering on that promise. So it excites me to deliver. I feel really, really bright-eyed when I hear that a student is building a new game in Unity and they're learning all these things and they're building scrapers and they're, honestly, everything about what students are able to do once they've interacted with us keeps the fire going. And it really, as I said, it gives a sense that we really are going full steam ahead. We are using that as a driving force, and the trust that people have in you and what they're able to do is what excites me most and what basically keeps us going. Yeah. And everybody who's a part of the team, they feel that. And that also is important. So those are the moments that I hold most dear.
So you're moving full steam ahead. You're obviously very pleased, very proud of what you have thus far. What is next? If we're to see Godiva in a year, 2 years, maybe 5, what do you see for not only yourself? Maybe let's talk about what you see for Steam House, and then we talk about what you see for yourself, since you're always in service to people. Like,
oh, wow. Steam House. The first phase that we're going to knock off is basically build this culture of STEAM education right across Jamaica. From Morant Bay to Westmoreland Point, we're going to find it. Yes. And so that means a matter of just, getting it right in terms of how we're getting this message out to Jamaicans. And not just Jamaicans in Jamaica, but Jamaicans in the diaspora, Jamaicans who are Jamaican at heart. Because, again, this is a problem that runs deep. We first need to let people know that we exist and we are here to help you solve this problem that we also care deeply about. The next stage of Steam House will see us being able to do more for building the future of learning. Because that's the mission that we've committed to. We literally are every day building the future of learning. And, it will mean a different team, it may mean an optimized team, it may mean different territories, whatever the cards lay in order to get to building the future of learning, that is on the table. But for now, we are home. We are home and we're building at home because this is where we find that we want to offer the most value. For Godiva. Lordy. So, fun fact, I love to journal, so every other morning I do this. Yeah, like if I was working, you'd totally see me writing. It's like I do this 10-year map, like Godiva at 40, like, okay. It's like, so I write as if, I'm 40 and like the life that I'm living. My aim, as simple as it is to be at peace. To live really, really harmoniously. Godiva in the future, I can't tell you. I really can't tell you. But what I will say is it will be something of impact, it will be something of service, and it will be something around community. Yeah.
All right, so our final thoughts as we come to a close. I really want to know, maybe what would you say to someone who perhaps has some kind of dream, some kind of idea, some kind of thing that they're not quite sure if they should embark on. Maybe they feel like they haven't been able to validate the value. Maybe they've tried and it hasn't worked out at that point. What would you want to share?
First things first, just start. As simple as it is. It actually says here, just start. Because oftentimes we think we can think our way to a solution, think our way out of a problem. We do this in worrying, we do this in planning, we do this in over planning. Sometimes you just need to start because you get better clarity from action than of thought. Yeah? Clarity doesn't necessarily come from thought. Yes, you can be like philosophers, but even philosophers, they practiced what they were thinking, the thoughts that they came up with. So just start. I will never tell someone that, hey, just starting is easy, but think about what is one thing that you can do that gets you to something that is 1,000 steps away or 10,000 steps away. But start here, literally just start. And to some extent, start with the end in mind. And really, really important, pay attention to signals. When you start, you never want to be caught in this rut where, you just keep doing the same things over and over again. Always, if you're going to start, have a feedback loop. Have some sort of information you're getting to say, hey, am I on the right course? And you have to define for yourself what the right course is. It's like rockets, right? People think that rockets, when they set off on a trajectory, they know exactly where they're going, and the path is set. Well, the path is set, but guess what? The path often veers. You may be trying to get to Mars, you realize that you're veering towards Venus. But at the end of the day, what makes rockets stay on course is that they're always getting feedback. Am I doing the right thing? Am I going along the path that will get me there? But you still have to just start. You're never going to have all the pieces together. You're never going to be absolutely ready. Nothing is going to be totally certain.
Nothing's going to be perfect in order for you to get started.
No. But start. Just start. Start and ask for help. Ask for help. Feel free. That's the one thing I said, I wish I had known how to ask for help and ask for help shamelessly. Hey, polite persistence.
Yeah. I mean, the worst thing, there's a thing that I say that, and it's the worst thing somebody can say is no. You'll still be in the same position, but if they say yes, you'll be one step ahead.
And guess what? You see, when people tell you no, they probably will give you a reason to. So that's part of your feedback. That's part of, all right, cool. They told me no for this reason, so I know I'm looking for somebody who will say yes for why reason. So maybe that person wasn't the person you should be seeking to, but you always have to just keep going. It's never easy, but think about it long term. If you want to go long term, think about who you can rely on, count on, and who wants to help you, and start. As plain as it is, start. Don't think your way through it forever. Because even that is a form of creative procrastination.
You get so caught in the thinking that you don't do.
Exactly. So, yeah, just do it.
All right, so we've had a scintillating conversation with CEO of Steam House, Godiva Golding, and there are 3 things that really stood out to me, and I hope they stood out for you. Make sure you have a feedback loop. Rocket, like a rocket, you always need to be checking your trajectory to make sure you're hitting your mark. 2, don't be afraid to ask for help. Just because you can do it on your own, it does not mean you should. Teamwork really does make the dream work, right?
That's right.
And last but certainly not least, please just get started. Nike said, just do it, and so should you. Get started, guys. See you next time. Just start.